Stop the cap.
Umar Johnson is like, he's just an individual. Like, you just get what you get from him. He hasn't really changed. It's not like listening to Dr. Claude Anderson. I'm not going to say that there isn't anything informative about what he says, but he does a whole bunch of, pandering and says things seemingly to be provocative for the sake of being provocative. Starting off, at the very beginning of the Breakfast Club, so everybody, they asked him about being the anti-Snow Bunny meme. And again, he's still inconsistent as ever, right? And to my biracial sisters, you are African until proven otherwise. That makes no sense. He harps and jumps on the idea of black men being in particularly with white women, calls, the snow bunny hopping or the bunny hopping, as he says, right? But then when it comes to the people who are biracial that are a byproduct of that union, he just one drop rules them to death. And we already know what, some of that comes from. That comes from the gender-based colorism, the gender-based one drop ruling. Again, I implore you to go on YouTube right now and type in Umar Johnson and General Seti. It's hilarious listening to him say, Drake is black. He don't seem to know anything, about Drake, and many of the criticisms that people have labeled against, Drake basically just doing African American cosplay. And he one drop rules Drake in, but when he was having an argument with General Seti, right? General Seti, when he looks in the mirror, he sees a cracker, right? But then when it comes to people who are the byproduct of biracial relationships, namely the women, sister, you are African until proven otherwise. Like, it makes no sense. And again, if you're going to be consistent about it, like, it makes no sense to say that you have a problem with black men being with white women visually and the message that sends, right? I get all that, but I'm like, why don't you take it all the way? Black children are full black children, and it's a problem with black men being with any other race of woman that's not black, because that does not produce black children. You wouldn't hear a white supremacy in it, since he loves to compare himself to, like, when they were talking about Eminem can't be the GOAT and all this other stuff, right? Because you don't give your culture away. You'll never see a white supremacist talking about um, uh, this biracial child is white, and I can go out here and reproduce a white child with a black woman or any other race of any other woman. They don't play those games. But Umar Johnson and all of his Afrocentric hotepetry and wisdom, loves to be inconsistent. I mean, it is a major point of failure in his logic every time he does it. And I mean every time he does it. And what it highlights is, it highlights his need to pander to the audience, because that would be too divisive. Reorganizing the black race would be too divisive, right? It would ostracize too many people. It would, light-skinned people, biracial people. Although some people don't have a problem with light-skinned people, but there's no way for light-skinned black people not to catch the smoke, in the process of reorganizing the rate and quote unquote booting out the biracial people, right? And some of the biracial people, we know how foul they are. All you got to do is go over to channels like, Exoticals United, with that whole wanting to be black royalty, riding off of the back, piggybacking off of the system of white supremacy that elevates whiteness and the proximity to whiteness. Okay. So yes, colorism exists in the black community. It's a problem. It's largely the focus is on how black men choose women and beauty standards, and light equals feminine and dark equals masculine. I could argue about, black women and how, they don't prefer light-skinned men and all that, and we can say that that's colorism, but it's difficult to charge them with a crime because they're going to say, well, what's the problem with me preferring a man that's the same color as me? That's not self-hatred, because it's not really about the color, it's about your perception of, hyper masculinity, where again the way that light-skinned men have been depicted has been in a feminine manner, which women are not going to find attractive, but men are going to find attractive. And dark skin, has the way that it's been depicted, has been depicted in this sort of hyper masculine, space where men are not going to find that attractive, but women will find that attractive. But no matter how many times that's explained, it just seems to go over everybody's head. But I mean, that's just a major point of failure on the part of Dr. Umar Johnson. I don't know why he continues to do it. If you're gonna talk about you don't like interracial datings, then again, yes, we know that those children didn't have a choice in being born biracial, but they cannot represent the black race. There's no point in saying that they're black, because as soon as you go up there and you have some biracial woman playing Harriet Tubman, or as we saw with Zoe Saldana trying to play Nina Simone, right? Everybody blows a gasket. So why are you trying to one drop rule them in? It's silly. It's silly. And, in my opinion, it's directly tied to, that sort of, lusting light skinned women, gender based colorism, especially as it pertains to Umar Johnson, right? Because hasn't he was out there caught taking pictures and shit but maybe I shouldn't take it that far, because, anybody can say anything about a picture. But the other thing is, he gets into pandering to black women about, marriage and who's marrying them, and, marry, 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 and you need to marry sisters, and, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, don't you have two baby mamas? You got two black women that you impregnated and you're not married to. You know what I mean? Like to have, like, what is with all the black male hypocrites online? Like, what is with that? You got men that have kids that are running around talking about they don't date single mothers. You don't have the right to talk about you don't date single mothers when you're out here creating them. And I understand it's only a minority of black men that are creating them, because only 46% of black men are fathers, while 54% of black men are childless, and we got 61% of black women who are mothers. This is why this whole mother conversation is just, it's such a problem. And to, he goes into talking about, black women, and being them being, what did he say? He said 40% of them have been, what did he say? 40% of them, 40, he said 40% black women are 40% of femicides. And that is not true. That is not true at all. The closest thing to 40%, and I put this on the community tab, the closest thing to 40% I saw on the internet was that 40% of black women experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And we don't even know how domestic violence is even being defined. Like, is it harassment? Is it verbal abuse? Is it physical abuse? You gotta figure out how these things are being defined. But that's over the course of a lifetime, which is what, for women, it's like 80 years or something like that. Right. So he he does this sort of pandering thing, and, look, I went and looked up the numbers. There's on average, and this is using AI, on average, it's about 500 black women that are killed, that are murdered by men specifically each year. It's about 500. And it's like a 1 in 15,000 chance of getting hit by a lightning bolt. And so when you put 500 over the fact that there's 22 million black men, right, in terms of, 22 million black women and girls, right, as in terms of population, like, it's a drop in the bucket. It's like 0.0027%. Like, I'm like, get out of here. That's like one 1,000th of a percent of women are being killed every year, right? And I understand, right? Every death is important. You should always try to attempt to reduce violence, blah, 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 blah. But when people are running around like as a black woman, you're more likely to get struck by lightning. I mean, more likely to be murdered than you are to be struck by lightning. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's like, it's just false flag, false alarm, type of rhetoric. And they love to do this with these percentages, where they go up there, oh, 50% of this, 60% of that, and they don't give you raw numbers. When I say 61% of black women are mothers, that's 13.4 million black women who are mothers versus 9.2 million black men are fathers at 46%. That's a 4.2 million parent gap. 4.2 million parent gap. 4.2 million. You could fill up the entire city of Sydney, Australia, with 4.2 million people. I think that's one of the comparable cities when it comes to that. And then when it comes to the difference between childless black men and childless black women, there's 10.8 million childless black men to 8.5 million childless black women, right? So that's 2.3 million people. That's about the gap. That's about the size of the city of Houston. So somebody asked me, that I was making a video and I was getting irritated watching some Antoine and watching some other videos, and Antoine's doing a pretty good job addressing some of this conversation around single mothers. I can't say that he's not, even though he irritates me in other areas. But somebody asked me, why do these conversations always revolve around mothers and what mothers are or aren't doing? Because there's too many goddamn mothers. Point blank, period. There's too many goddamn mothers in the black community. Period. And it's a direct result of black women sharing men. One of the things that I don't like about the violence rhetoric, right? Because Umar Johnson brought up the whole thing about, the community is broken, we're, the byproduct of, systemic racism, right? Which I agree with. Right. And then he goes into the black men are looking for perfect partners when, they're not perfect because we're all victims of systemic racism. Yeah, agreed. But that doesn't mean that a black man is going to want to deal with a black woman who thinks it's okay for her behavior, to be confrontational and non-cooperative. And then you got all the other matriarchal bullshit going on in the background. Right. I treat broke men the same way I treat men with money. Right. I don't what's the other phrase? I don't mind allowing a man to believe that he's in control. Anytime I come across a man that's ahead of me, I got to reevaluate myself. Y'all have heard all these sayings over the years, as long as I've been online, right? A black man can't do anything without the strength of a black woman. These are quotes from black women since I've been online that I have remembered. I'm so tired of Umar Johnson going up there and talking about leadership, black male leadership. And what these women want is not leadership. They want black male responsibility. And he seems to like to play dumb, like they don't understand, like he doesn't understand that. And it's a whole bunch of pandering. The other thing when talking about, the violent nature of black men in the black community, since that women always want to bring that up, and Umar Johnson always wants to bring that up. What irritates me about that is the fact that we got so many black women out here that love savages. They like savages. They love niggas that got bodies and are in the streets. They love that shit. And if you're gravitating towards men like that, yeah, it's very likely that those men will turn on you when you get beside yourself and you somehow think that this man that's out there fighting to survive every day, selling drugs, doing whatever he's doing in the streets, is going to tolerate any level of disrespect coming from you, and that he won't put you in the dirt. Oh, it's sexy. His aggression, his hyper masculinity, right? Him not having a boss because he's out there and all that's sexy. Him not following the rules, right? He speaks to the rebellious nature that's already in the woman. All of that is sexy. until you all get into it over something, and then he puts hands on you and then you possibly die. Now it's not sexy. Now you a victim. Now you're a damsel in distress. Now you're a fainting Victorian virgin from the antebellum South or some shit like that, right? You're just you need to be rescued. Like, fuck out of here. It's irritating listening to these conversations about, oh, black X amount of black women are killed, and we don't ever touch on or talk about women in their proxy violence, like what happened with Dominique Jones in Travis Rudolph, with her sending her brother and a bunch of goons over Travis's house, talking about go shoot his shit up, or the very visible, and it's still on YouTube, the SEPTA bus shooting in Philadelphia, where the Muslim brother tried to tell the sister that she needs to stop spanking her son on the bus the way that she was spanking her son, because he was having fun running up and down the aisles, and she was trying to discipline him, but she was beating the shit out of him. And then she called up. She was like, "How dare you speak to me in such a manner?" She went and called up her goon. I think it was her brother or her boyfriend or something. The two guys showed up. Dude pulled a SKS out of his pants and then sprayed the damn bus down. But somehow that's not black women exhibiting violence. That's not black women exercising violence. We're only going to talk about violence in the context of domestic violence and black men, killing or putting hands on black women. We're not going to talk about the number of black men that are dead in a cemetery because a black woman made a phone call, because a black woman felt that she was wronged or disrespected. And as a woman in a clip that I used to use said, now these niggas are going through it the whole summer. And it all starts with you. It all starts with you. Like, that shit is just, the pandering to black women is just crazy. And I was looking at the comments on the Shade Room, and it was just, and black women were just, yes, just co-signing Umar Johnson. I'm like, you do know he's not married to black women, right? You do know that he created two baby mamas. It's just a baby mama industrial complex in the black community. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of black women and their victimhood. I'm tired of them not taking any accountability. Like, even when Dr. Umar Johnson got to the whole, the schools and the school choice, and talking about, black boys, and, how many of them cannot read at grade level. I am very familiar with this idea. I didn't know that it was as bad as 10%. Only 10% of black boys up until the 8th grade can read at grade level. I remember reading papers. Like I told y'all, I did a video a long time ago talking about my experience in the school district, and phone, phone, phone. Like, they would spell shit out phonetically and it would be dead wrong. And they can't read, which affects everything. You can't read, you can't write a resume. You can't even articulate yourself. You can't even read instructions. And there's a lot of black men out here that really, they can't read. They struggle, to read, information. And yes, these are the people that are at the lower rungs of the socioeconomics of society. You think of your worst hoods all across America, and that's pretty much, what their reading level is. They basically just, they can't read and write. And you'll see this when you ever see hood people try to write something or make a text or post, and it blows up because, I don't know, it's some either man or woman that's near or affiliated with the streets. And you notice how they always have all these crazy, it's not even abbreviations, it's just they don't know how to spell. You know what I mean? Like they're missing words, they're missing like transition words. Like, it's not like, there's a difference between when a PR person writes it and when these other folks, write it, and you can tell like they write how they speak. But the thing is like, it's two things I want to address here. The first thing I want to address is, like, you'll get all these black women, single moms and all this other stuff, and they'll talk about how black women can raise children all by themselves. How are you excellent at raising children all by yourselves, and only 10% of black boys can read at 10% of black boys can read at grade proficiency up until the 8th grade, and it only gets worse after that. They can't read, and yet you're talking about how wonderful a mother you are. It's nonsense. On the men's end, right? And this goes back to what I said about, a lot of these guys are out here talking about how they're entitled to childless women when they got kids their damn self. How the fuck are you niggas gonna come online and talk about how you deserve a childless woman and you don't want to date a baby mama, even though you got kids out there and black boys, only 10% of them are reading at grade level? How does that work? How are you talking about you as a parent being entitled to childless women and only 10% of black boys? Because you're in the parent category. All right, I'm not in the parent. I'm in the 54%. I'm not in the parent category. So I don't have any black boy that's not reading at grade proficiency that I'm responsible for. But you do. And many of you, not all of you, but many of you have the audacity to sit here and come online and talk about how you're entitled to childless pussy and your own child is not reading at grade level. How does that work? How does that work? So all you black parents, all y'all motherfuckers should be on the front lines, when it comes to, the next generation. You have a greater responsibility than anybody because you decided to go out here and bring children into the world. And many of you all, point blank period, you suck at parents. Plain and simple. You suck at parent. You suck at being a parent. I don't know what selfish reason. I already talked about a lot of men, the children that they have are just a byproduct of fucking. You know what I mean? Even the non-black guy that I was telling you about, the one that I'm no longer friends with because of, his bullshit, and him not taking responsibility, same thing. I'm really questioning whether he even loves his child. I'm questioning that. Because I'm like, nah, I don't think you really thought about what it really meant and the responsibilities that come with being a father. No, you wanted to be married. You wanted the respect of being married, right? You wanted the regularity of getting some ass, from being married. But now that you divorced and you don't have access to that, now all the child literally just becomes a paycheck and a responsibility, and you feel some type of way about that. I'm watching it unfold. I'm watching it happen in real time. In real time. And even now, like I talked to his ex-wife and I have even more reason not to talk to him because he went to go pick up his daughter and he was supposed to spend a week with his daughter and what ended up happening, he went to go pick her up and she didn't last a week there. She was crying, didn't want to be there. I already told him. I told him. I told his mother. You know what I mean? I was like, your grandchild doesn't want to be here. Point blank period. I'm like, he cannot disappear, for 4 weeks and then just randomly show up and act like everything's normal. And then the audacity of him to sit there and try to, he's mad and frustrated. One, because, his child is making him look bad in front of his other siblings because obviously on the phone, oh, how's so-and-so? Oh, she's great, right? Telling them that everything is cool. And then when the other siblings get there, they see that everything is not cool. So that makes him look bad. And he feels embarrassed because, again, there is no greater, you're a piece of shit than your own child not fucking with you. There is no greater you are a piece of shit human being than your child not fucking with you. And this situation is only going to get worse because he took the child back, dropped her off at her mother's, and then basically said, I'm not going to continue visitation and picking her up until she can communicate with me about what's wrong with her. And I'm like, motherfucker, you haven't been here for 4 weeks, and then you barely FaceTime the child, right? So of course she's going to be upset with you and in her feelings. She has every right to be. Hell, the fucking white bitch that you're out there in whatever Midwestern town that you're in, that you're getting your dick sucked by, you know what I mean? Yeah, don't talk to her for 4 weeks and see how that works out. Sit there and act like your daughter's out of pocket because she don't fuck with you, and you expect her to act and behave like her other siblings, or excuse me, her other cousins, that have two parents in the home. All of the other children in that house, when all the siblings get together, all the adult siblings, when they all get together, all of them are with their spouses, all of them. So she's the only one that doesn't have, or doesn't even know of a solid two-parent home. You know what I mean? Because they've been divorced, for several years now. She doesn't know. Her whole existence has been of nothing but brokenness, and somehow they expect that not to affect her. And granted, like I said, these are non-black people that do not have the reputation that African Americans have, which is very interesting. I could stand right next to him, and people would assume that I'm the one with the child that I'm not taking care of. And I'm sitting there like, motherfucker, of the two of us, only one of us has a child not only one of us has a child, only one of us has a child that doesn't fuck with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, so my point is, nah, you got to be there. 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 And, all this stuff about whether it's because who was addressing the video? I don't know if it was Shay Sade or if it was Riva TV, but it was a clip of a woman and the guy was up there. They both had kids, and neither one of them wanted to date a person with a child. Both of them wanted to date only childless people. And the woman, she had been pregnant. She got pregnant at 18, had the baby at 19. And she didn't want to date a man with kids. Yeah, because his resources are tied up. And dating, a man, look, ain't no way for a man to be with a woman that has children and not to come up off of some money. That's never going to happen. That's delusional. And so both of these people have created baggage, and they don't want to deal with each other. They want somebody brand new. They want somebody who's disciplined, who hasn't made the same mistakes that they made and doesn't have the baggage that they carry with them, but yet they both expect somebody to deal with their baggage, right? But when they don't want to deal with anybody's baggage, fuck the both of them. And I mean that from the deepest depths of my soul. Fuck the both of them. I mean it's just total bullshit. Just looking at, and then Umar Johnson comes up there talking about how, these boys can't even read at grade level, and some of you fathers are coming online talking about what childless pussy you're entitled to. Nah, y'all niggas need to go somewhere with that. I mean, on two fronts. One, you got responsibilities, and two, you're not entitled to childless women. And I say that as a childless man. You're not entitled to them. And if it comes down to blows or it comes down to gunshots or whatever it is, it needs to. Because y'all motherfuckers are y'all out of your minds. Just plain and simple. Y'all out of your minds. You know what I mean? Only 10% of black boys are reading at grade level, up to the 8th grade. And niggas is online talking about, what's the next bitch they're going to run up in. And y'all are parents. Shit is retarded. But like all y'all people who are parents, y'all need to stop talking about childless people. You need to either link up with another parent, or you need to get back with your ex. Point blank, period. Y'all need to go and get back with your ex, and you need to stay out of the conversations that have to do with childless people finding each other. And that's another thing that needs to happen is childless people need, and this was said before, childless people need to start treating each other with some level of respect. You know, the whole thing with that fat light skinned girl that that Six the Goddess did a video on, and the guys that were up there and they were talking about, yeah, granted she was arrogant and she was, I don't want to date short men, but yet men should accept her side. Delusional. But there was a part in there where those guys where she hasn't slept around because I think she was a virgin, and it was like they were looking for a reason to disqualify her. Like, oh well, that's true. You haven't been with a bunch of people, and if she was, they would have made that an issue. Well, you got too many bodies on her. Some arbitrary number. Oh, you got too many bodies on her. I am growing sick and tired of the men online, talking about women who bust it wide open, but yet they really don't want to deal with virgins. Let's keep it a buck. Men love whores. They love thoughts. They love all that shit. You know what I mean? Even myself, like, I don't really have a problem with a woman, being sexually open. And I understand that number of what's too many, is arbitrary. No, it's the babies. Babies will always take precedent for me over bodies. Because babies, it's an unfixable situation. You cannot put a baby back. You cannot, a woman can, and you can sit there and say, oh, well, what if a woman has too many bodies? First off, I'm not even asking her. I don't want to know. That's just one of them situations. I don't want to know. I don't need that in my head. Okay? No babies. Chick ain't got no babies. As far as I'm concerned, that's a new car. And trust me, the older you get as men, the older you get, and when you realize just how many few childless women are really out here, you will begin to cease to care about how many bodies there are. Granted, you got STDs, you got to worry about reputation and everything. I'm not telling you to go out there and get a chick that's working the corner. What I'm saying is, no, babies are a permanent situation. A woman and her body count, that's just something that you're either going to be aware of or you're not going to be aware of, and you decide whether you want to deal with that or not. I get the whole thing, the pair bonding, all that. I get all the reasons. But as far as I'm concerned, generally speaking, I'm like, that's a new car. She's in that 39%, right? But, again, that's up to everybody's own personal discretion. I'm just telling you, childless women are a commodity. Point blank, period. They're a commodity. And that's another area that Dr. Umar Johnson, doesn't touch on when you want to talk about snow bunnies. And sorry, sisters, but, this is a ding against you all. Because you all are indeed sharing men. Only 46% of black men are fathers. Hell, only 43% of white men are fathers. So we're not far off from them. But you all reproduction, it outstrips Latinas. You gotta keep the immigrant population in order for Latinas to surpass black women at 62% versus black women 61%. You gotta keep the immigrant Latinas that are already coming here with babies in the population just to keep black women's Latinas numbers above black women. Because as soon as you remove the immigrants, friggin' Latinas who do have a high number, their number drops down to like 58, 57%, which is like closer to where white women are at. You guys have the highest percentage, of mothers out of your population. And then on top of that, we have the highest percentage of single mothers. Because 81% of black children are born out of wedlock. You can go and look at that CDC report from 2015 and 2019. 81%. Now, Umar Johnson says, 61, what did he say? 61% we got 61% of women that are like single mothers, like actually raising the kids. Because the thing is out of wedlock, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because just because the child is born out of wedlock doesn't mean the parents are together. So I think it's like 22%, something like that, are cohabitating. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's around 22% are cohabitating, but they're not married. They didn't get married. And when that first child was born, they were not married, but they're still together. I'm not even going to knock that too much. So we'll look at that number. We'll bring that number from 81% down to 61% of like um, the actual, women who are actually, operating as single mothers. So that's 67. What did he say? 67% of the 61%, which means 67% of the 13.4 million, women, who are mothers, right? Because I think something like 29% of those women, are married. Right, because most women who are married do have kids, so I don't even need to sit there and be like, well, what about the women that are married and don't have kids? Drop in the bucket. What about the men that are married and don't have this? Drop in the bucket. That's not going to finagle my numbers, But when it comes to the IR point blank period, if a black man, we have a 2.3 million person gap between childless men and childless black women. There are 10.8 million childless black men, and there are what did I say? 8.5 million childless black women, and there's 2 million more black women. That's how fucked up that is. There's 2 million more black women, but there's 2.3 million more childless men than childless black women. So when it comes to the IR dating, if you're a childless black man and this is why the whole, their numbers aren't available and all that shit Oprah said, no. Again, there's so many other factors that go into that, and the main factor that goes into that is that what if a childless man is not looking for, a mother? What if he wants to get a childless woman? Pound for pound, we got 2.3 million black men that literally have to step outside of the race. They have to step outside of the race if they want a childless, black woman. Which means they got to be diving into the Latina community. They got to be diving into the white community, the Asian community, if they want a childless woman. Because black women are sharing men. You got black men out here that are in that 46%. Hell, Dennis is one of them, right? He's been with 3 women at this time, and if he gets the little Dominican chick that he's with now, that's 3 women that he will have impregnated. The Jamaican, his ex-wife, and then this new Dominican. You see, so granted, she's not a black woman, but you get my point. Just double dipping all over the place. Like I said, certain individuals do not need to be in the conversation. When like, in other words, point blank period, you are not entitled to a childless woman. If you can get it, you can get it. That's her choice. That's her prerogative. But you are not entitled to a childless woman. There's no entitlement here. And that's where people get it twisted. And some of it, and this is Captain Solo's theory, but his whole thing is a lot of childless men co-sign the shit because they like the idea of black men being able to do whatever they want to do and setting the pace, that they can go out here and do something that black women, can't do. Right? I don't know how I feel about that. The jury's still out on me on that. I'm like, I think the one of the differences is that when men are expected to pay. Men are expected to pay. No single mother is going out here, trying to do 50-50. They're really trying to get a man to take on the financial burden of, their children, and his children and whatever new children he has. And this is where you get into situations where women are getting, if the relationship fails, they're getting multiple checks from multiple dudes. There is a different dynamic there because there's a different dynamic between men and women and how relationships go. Where he is to spend his resources and still be the provider, even for children that are not his own. Meanwhile, as Kevin Samuels pointed out, The other dude never pays for his children. If he has a new child with her and they live all underneath the same roof, he pays for the child she brought into the relationship and his child and whatever other children he has with some other woman, right? But the old dude doesn't have to pay for his new child. How does that work? You know what I mean? These are issues and problems that people with children that don't stay with the person that they had, their first child with, this is what they have to deal with. These are not conversations I need to be in. But the problem is that people with children are diving into discussions that childless people are having with childless people. And much of the problem with these discussions is the fact that everybody keeps acting like it's the 1990s and we don't have the information on what percentage of black men are actually fathers versus the percentage of black men who aren't, and what percentage of black women are mothers versus the percentage of black women who aren't. These things are important. You see? So, it's just when people want to sit here and they want to factor these things in, yeah, all you're going to be left with is conversations about colorism and self-hatred when you don't factor in being a childless black man looking for a childless black woman is not the easiest thing in the world. Point blank, period. Now, you could be argued, go out there and get with, black women from other countries or other cultures, which, yes, you can put that on the table. But even some of that is not the easiest thing to do in the world because of, the way that African Americans are perceived and all the diaspora wars, that are currently going on. Honestly, your risk of rejection is pretty much, the same, or it might even be lesser when it comes to, dating out white versus dating black in the diaspora. Do not date the Akata. You got to deal with all that bullshit. Right? I don't really see the difference between dealing with that and dealing with Becky's, possible racist uncle. And the crazy thing, you throw in colorism and anti-blackness that exists all around the world. The funny part, and I've said this before, is white women are the most open to dating African-American black men compared to any other group of women. Me, I would rather date a Latina than date a white woman, but you go walk into the Latino community and you immediately run into all that mejoró la raza bullshit. So, it's we're homeless, basically. We're homeless, as black men. In terms, if you out here as a childless black man and you're looking for a childless black woman, the numbers are not in your favor. And every last one of you should be pissed off anytime some black dude, that has kids is talking about how he's entitled to a childless woman. Fuck that nigga. But anyway, I'm pretty much done with this video. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.